So it just really is nice to be mindful once in a while and just sit and relax and ask yourself, how am I? Emotionally, physically, mentally, and just kind of be right there and give yourself some time because we're so rushing all the time. So I'm going to just get into, we have all this power within us. We have all this potential. And I kind of look at energy as neutral. It's not positive or negative. And it's just this great energy. And here I was one morning on Lake Huron holding the sun in my hands for sunrise. And it just kind of gave me that whole idea of, this is what we have capable. This is what we're capable of doing. So we're just this one little entity in this big old world. And we have this life around us. And everybody has these balls in the air that they're constantly juggling. And now the thing is that here you just have 8 balls in the air. But when you think about family and friends, you have all sorts of things that go in there. When you think about your career, your finances, you got all sorts of stuff in there. Same thing with contribution or the community. So we have so many things going on at one time. It's just nice to be able to slow down. But it's also nice to say, what kind of life is that we want? Because we know life has experiences all the time. They're giving us experiences. And with our life, we're constantly going through change or transitions, and they cause challenges and distractions. They give us new discoveries. But one of the things that often comes up is fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And so one of the things I always talk about is your energy, and it's just the vibrational energy that you give off, because that's what you're going to get back. So it's what you surround yourself with, because energy really helps you become aligned and balanced within your life. And it also kind of pushes away some of that fear, uncertainty, and doubt if you're lucky. It's one of those things you go back, and that's why we're starting with values, because we have the different states of energy. You have your mental energy, your emotional energy, your physical energy, and of course your spiritual energy. And it's really what you think, feel, and do, and then it's your presence. And so when I think about energetic presence, that's what I'm thinking about. It's what kind of energy, what kind of vibrational energy you're giving off to other people. And a lot of people say, oh, well, this is all great as far as I got all these balls in the ears, but what do I do with it? I'm just going back and forth. And really, it's about choice. Everybody has choices to make and priorities to make. And because our choices create our habits and our behaviors, or you can say our habits become our behaviors. But it's really about how we respond to things, because we can either be reactive or we can be responsive. And when we respond to things, that means responsibility. So the ability to respond. And that's where you really need to take 100% responsibility for your habits and behaviors and your choices if you want to have the results you want to have. Otherwise, you're living off of somebody else's hopes and dreams, you're following somebody else's tune, and you're not necessarily going to get what you want to get. So the number one thing is really to take 100% responsibility. And what happens a lot of times is people want to work on somebody's behaviors, especially in organizations. The first thing we think about is, oh, well, we need to do something with these people. They just, I hear, there's complaining and blaming and making excuses, and people don't want to work together, and there's no trust, and these guys aren't accountable. And they're always really, want to change a certain behavior. But the problem with behaviors is that they're tough. And so that's why, people talk about soft skills, but nobody really wants to touch on soft skills because they're tough. They're not an easy thing to go after. But I feel that that's at the root of all the problems, and it really sits with our essence. So everybody's habits and behaviors are created from their values, and your values are, usually deeply rooted, and they're everything that we do. They're the energetic drivers of our aspirations. It's not just about what's important, but it's also the source of all our, motivation and decision making, and they define who we are at a very deep level of our being. So they give significance to our life, and they're reflective through the priorities that we choose. So, and what's great about values and why I really like working with them when I'm working with clients is because, first of all, they're measurable and everything, but they bring us together. when we're trying to talk to somebody about, if we're getting a discussion about a belief, it's a lot easier. So values are kind of like beliefs with a punch, because values get down to our core. And if I say family's important to me, somebody else can say, oh, me too. Oh, me too. You get all that. But the way people might describe what family means might be totally different. And that's why you have to kind of go a little bit deeper into the emotions behind the families, or what your definition of family is. So, I remember when I first joined Ford Motor Company, and values was a really big thing. Everybody had the mission and vision statement and values, and it was my first time in corporate America. But that's one of the things that was really important. I've worked with certain clients where they don't have a vision or mission statement. It's like gross profit. That's all it's about, gross profit. And the thing is that when you have values, it's like I said, it connects people. So that's why we're starting with values today, because as we live our life, as we live our careers, as we run our organizations, our communities, values are at the root of it all. So as I mentioned earlier, we have all this fear, uncertainty, and doubt that kind of jumps up at us. So one of the things is that right now we're dealing with is the corona virus. But the thing is that it's a matter of, what do we feel about it? And what we feel about it is going to change from person to person. And it's called our perception. So, and our perceptions are normally a belief that we've created from the past. Like I said, it's normally very deeply rooted. One of the things that the Jesuits used to say was, give me your child till they're 7, I'll show you a man at 50. And really what they're saying is that those formative years are really, really important. And, this is where your values a lot of times are created. It's created from your community, from your environment, from your family, from your parents. And we're kind of programmed at a very young age, but it doesn't necessarily mean we need to stay there. Sorry. So, and I already talked about it, because it's really important. Values are important because it gives us direction. Okay. No two values are alike. I mean, even if I say, when I go into when I'm working with somebody and we talk about values and everyone says family's important, we go around the room and start asking what values mean. But values might be number 1 to one person, and it might be down on the list of number 7 to another. And it kind of depends. And your values will eventually change. But again, the reason why values are so important is when you're doing your vision, when you say, this is what we want, this is what we want this is what I want for my life, this is what I want for the organization or for my business. The thing about it is it really starts with values. When you can make a list, you can go down and make a list of 100 things you want to do, what I want to be, who I want to be, what I want to do, and the things I want to have. And you put this long, long list together. But then once you have the list together, you go back and you kind of look at, okay, why are they important? And normally when you start asking yourself why they're important, sometimes that's when you eventually get into where your values, what's important to you right now. And like I said, your essence is at the bottom. Now, most people want to be successful in their life, of course, but you have to decide the same thing, what's important to you, because that's where you'll find your success. If you think, having a whole lot of money or making a ton of money is what's going to create your happiness, because that's when I'll get happy, that's where you're kind of going wrong. You're kind of going, you want to be happy, but if you're working 24/7 and you're, just, away from, family's one of your values, but you're traveling on the road, 5 days a week, you're only home on the weekends, then you're up against different values. You're beating each other up. So it's really important to have it, because success takes action. So once you decide what's important to you, then you kind of can move forward. And it's like your little golden compass, and it will take you to where you want to go. So when I first became the general manager of Xerox, one of the things I love about Fortune 500 companies is they give you awesome training. And one of the things they did for me is they sent me to a leadership conference and a training, and we had to come up with our values. And then after our values, we came up with our operating principles. And the whole thing about the operating principles is, again, that's what I'm saying, they're a little bit different to anybody. But the nice thing is that I had this whole map of a bunch of different things. This is just one portion. But with that on my wall, every once in a while, if I was going hectic, I was going crazy, or I have 10 different things to do, sometimes I just pull that out and I take a look at it, take a couple breaths and say, okay, what's really important here? What's really important to me? What's really important to the organization? So that's why it's nice to have your values, the organization values. And if organizations create values, starting with individuals and then bring them up where people are heard, normally you can get a theme behind, there's 2,000 different values. So even if you have a list of 100 values and you kind of shake it out, it comes into a theme. And then it's a matter of being able to take that value and match it to what the company's values are. And then you have a little bit more purpose. You can be a little bit more on that same track. And your values will change as you go through life. In your childhood, you're just worried about having fun, being popular, fitting in, etc., being liked, growing up, etc., having the boys like you, having the girls like you. In your 30s and your 40s, your 20s, you're going through school, you're starting your career, all those kind of good things. But then in your 30s and 40s, you're really focused on work. And a lot of times when I talk about success, I have a course called Defining Success, because that's really what it's about, is that you figure out what success means to you and nobody else. Some people it's having a great career. Some people it's being a great wife and mother. Some people it's having, and the career could be, I'm going to be the best welder in the world. I'm going to be the best nurse in the world, or I'm going to be the best attorney in the world. So it doesn't matter what you want to be. It's a matter who you're going to be. Okay. So your values will change as life goes on. So as I said, these were my values 16 years ago when I did this, did an exercise. And today, these are my values. And again, my values have changed and my principles have changed to a certain extent. But now that I'm at the ripe old age of 60, you kind of change your different levels. And so hopefully, I know there weren't a whole lot of people that took the self-assessment, the personal assessment of your values, but we'll get into that in just a minute. But that's one of the things that we're going to be doing. That's the thing that we're basically doing today. Okay. So, as I said, once everybody knows what the values are, and when you have that buy-in, I mean, everyone wants that commitment and people to work, collaborate together. But like I said, values will bring people together. So for instance, at the FestPac, one of the nights they did a soccer game, and this was the team. And so it had all these guys from different, the different islands, and they just split themselves out and they had a soccer team. It didn't, everyone knew what the rules were. Everybody knew where they were going. They knew what was important at the time, and they just did it. So I love this quote: if everyone is moving forward together, then success takes care of themselves. So people always want the results and they want the success, but they don't want to go down and do the hard work to get us there. And if you give that autonomy, the mastery to people, etc., then they'll take care of it themselves, and you don't have to babysit or whatever it is that you might do at work. And that's where I get into the leadership, and we're just a little part of a whole, as I said in the beginning. And so you start with yourself. So when I think about leadership, some people will say, oh, well, not everybody's a leader. Well, I believe that everybody has to lead themselves first. And that's leadership. That's leading yourself. And from there, you can choose, I like to lead others. I want to inspire and empower other people. I want to, do a best job. I mean, one of the worst things you can do sometimes, and I've seen it often, where you have a great technician, these are my automotive days, but you have a great technician, and because he's so good, we're going to make him the manager. Or you have a great salesperson. Oh, that person's our number one salesperson. We have an opening, let's put him into management. And the thing is that they don't want to be a manager. They want to sell. You can make them a specialist or something, but they really want to just sell. So it was really funny because when I hired into Xerox and I had come off of being a manager at Atkins Kroll when I was they're the Mercedes service director and GM. They, the questions in my interview were, well, what do you want? Why would you want to step down from management back into sales? They thought that was really crazy, but I had to remember who was I talking to at the time, because depending on what level or where you're coming from, you think taking a step down is like the worst thing you can do. For me, and I told them, because I thought I was moving, I was 80% packed out, ready to leave Island. This is right after the Korean air crash. And I said, basically, I'm just tired of, dealing, worrying about everybody else. I just want to deal with myself for a little while and just really sell one-on-one, have fun with clients, and get out of the managing side. So the thing is that they said, and they said, okay. He says, well, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And I looked at Butch at the time and I said, well, I'll have your job. And I'm not cocky normally like that, but I didn't even want the job. I wasn't really looking for the job because I thought it was moving. But the thing is that 3.5 years later, I became the general manager. So the thing is that, there's leadership, but leadership is a desire and it's not a role. It's really, a part that it's a role that you play. It's not a title. It's more of a role that you play. And there has to be desire to do it because it's not easy. There's a lot of mix. And like I said earlier, you're dealing with a lot of emotion, whether it's, clients or your employees or employees from somebody else. It might be going up to corporate. It might be, dealing with your vendors, but you have a lot of responsibility that comes with leadership. So I hooked up with a company called Barrett Values a few years ago, and I decided to go ahead and get more additional training, which is why I have a link now that you can go in and take a personal assessment. But the nice thing about this is that Richard Barrett took Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and he transformed it. So once you get to that self-actualization at the top, then it goes into I should say, once you get to the actual self-actualization was at the top, he's expanded it upward. And we'll get into that. And I hope most of you did that. So it's kind of like survival and relationships. You get into your self-esteem. And then from self-esteem, you get into that self-actualization, which is really your transformation, which is at level 4. And then you get into internal cohesion, making a difference, and being a service to others. And what's interesting, he's laid this out in different ways. He's laid it out. So, the first couple levels, sorry, I went too far. Yeah, okay. Sorry, so the level that you're on will change. Your energy will be focused in one area. So if I'm looking at a assessment and I'm looking at somebody's dot plot, like you all received if you did the assessment, you'll see where people's energy comes from. And he's done probably, a couple million surveys throughout the world. He has the information for countries. He has it for men, women. He's broken it down. So, I could sometimes look at a dot plot and know exactly where the energy is, or sometimes I can even guess the age of somebody because where their energy is at within their dot plot. So Dan Pink wrote a book, Drive. And again, everybody kind of personal development and self-awareness and, all this work that I do, everybody does it. They just kind of switch it a little bit differently. And so you have, Richard Barrett's and his 7 levels of consciousness with values on one side. And then you have Dan Pink writing the same thing within Drive. And he really talks about mastery, what 3 factors lead to better performance. And it's mastery, which is at level 3, which is your self-esteem. Once you get that survival, which is 0 to 2, relationships are kind of like 8 to 24, those kind of become really important. And then that self-esteem starts at about, self-esteem starts about 8 to 24 years old. And that's when you're trying to get your expertise. You're building, the mastery of whatever it is you do. And as you get there and you kind of say, okay, I'm enough, I got it going, that's when you get into transformation. And that's when everybody always wants a certain amount of autonomy. And in business, a lot of times we think, oh, you know, we want this autonomy, but we don't, you know, we're so worried about controlling everything, which is down at level one, or the relationships, that we're not really letting people, you know, move up the ladder. And that's where you get all your succession planning from. You know, as you move up the ladder, you let people kind of do their thing. You trust that they know what they're doing. You trust that if they make a mistake, it's not going to be repeated. And that's where you get autonomy within the organization. And that's where the organization begins to thrive. When you get that internal cohesion, because you've kind of gone through some of this transformation, this, you start with the professional development, you move into personal development, then all of a sudden you get into, you know, your internal cohesion, and that's where purpose really starts. So levels, 5, 6, and 7, they all talk about purpose. It's either finding your purpose, living your purpose, or being your purpose, being on purpose in everything you do. Again, hopefully you guys did it. This is what I receive. I don't get to see your results unless you call me or share it with me. I think I mentioned that at the end of the survey, but this is what I see when somebody does the survey. So I know people are doing it. And then if you reach out to me, you can send me a copy of your survey and we can go through it. So I guess again, I'm going to see if I can see people. Everyone's has their what do you call it's on. But how many people did the survey? I'm hoping a bunch of you did the survey. I don't know. It's a hard thing not seeing. But when you receive the survey, the first thing you get, and here's my husband's, you get it's a 8-page report, but you get a little bit of information about, the 7 levels and what each level has and what's important. And as you see, I'll go through a little bit later, there's a few values down here that have some red in them, which says potentially limiting values. So on the survey itself, it says, positive or negative. So if you got a white dot, that's a potentially limiting belief. It's not that it's a limiting belief, but somebody who's after control, some people control is really important, but it's one of those values, if it's used too much, it can turn into a negative. That's where people can really, really see sometimes what's happening. And this is what I'm talking about. Sorry, I don't have my free screen share like I normally do when I'm doing presentation. But these are the 3 that have it. But, the Barrett value, it talks about needs. So it's, the first, the survival is your physical need. Then you get into your emotional needs through relationships and self-esteem. And you get into your mental stuff when it comes into transformation. And then you finally get into your spiritual side as you get into that self-awareness and to the top values. It also talks about, as I mentioned, it talks about your evolution, psychological needs, and just where your area of focus are. And there I go. There's your 3 things from him again. So what I want to do today is because a lot of people, and I'm guilty of it, you go online, you take a free survey, you read a book, and it has great information in the back. And it's like, oh man, I read this great book yesterday. And they have these questions and everything else. Or you buy a course online, and you get a workbook, and you get about 3 days into it, or 3 pages of answers, and you kind of stop. So what I'd like to do is, I don't know if you need to print a screen, or I think in the chat, Eileen added these questions across the top. So if you take out a pen and paper, and if you did not do the assessment, in the chat, there's some values, and these are them down below. And again, this is just a sample of values, but if you take a look at these values down below, pick out 3 that are most meaningful to you, that are most important. So above all, making a difference is number 1. Listening is important, but you know what? Making a difference is a whole lot more important to me. You know, my health is really important. And your health can be well-being or it can be health. It depends which way where you're kind of looking at from. Sometimes they lay on different levels because some people, they think of health as just physical. Where when I think of health, again, this goes back to what your definition of health. I think of it more of the well-being, but I think of health is not only my physical body, but my environment and the relationships that I have and just my mental attitude. And that's why like things like practices of mindfulness, etc., are there. So is everybody here? Okay, everyone have 3 values written down? I see a couple people shaking their heads, and like I said, I can't see everybody. So what we're gonna do, and please write down these questions. And I believe those are in the chat also. I don't see the chat because I am sharing my screen. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna break out, because this is the hard part. People don't do the work. And again, your values are who you are. And this is where it's also difficult. Some people don't want to share it. And your values should, you know, people see your values. People see who you are. So it's a really good thing to know where your values are and be able to tell them to other people. And I'll show you an assessment that I did recently and what came out of it. But anyway, so before we begin, write down your 3 highest values, write down 3 values, and take a look at the questions. And you're going to answer this question. And write down the answer to these 3 questions. And I'm just trying to give you a minute. In fact, I'm going to even put a timer on so I don't over talk. Okay. And the first question is, why do you believe this value is important to you? And if it's something like success is important to me because I want to make a lot of money, that's very surface. You want to go deeper. I want to be able to, you know, donate and become a philanthropist. I want to be able to take care of my family and my parents as they get older. I want to be able to have enough money to send my kids to college. You know, whatever it is, but kind of go a little bit deeper. So why is that value important to you? And again, this is a current value. The next thing you want to answer is recall a moment in your life where you really lived this value. And again, what behaviors did you exhibit to support that value? And that's really what it's about. It's like, it's one thing to say, health is really important to me, or well-being, but yet I don't exercise. And I'm eating a bag of chips. And, you know, but when you say, this is my value, it's a matter of looking at that value and saying, no, this is what I'm going to do about it. And then the thing is that the last question is, how might it show up? Sorry, I don't have I can't see my whole screen. So I'll just read it in case you don't have it. But how might you react if this value isn't being honored by others? Okay, describe the feelings, thoughts, and the actions that you might take. So for instance, Eileen and I were playing with this earlier, and Eileen, you don't mind if I share, do you? I'm going to assume not. I can't hear you because we already talked about this. But the thing is that, you know, her number 1 value was personal development. And I said, okay, you know, why is it important to you? And then we talked, and then we said, you know, how do you live this value? How does it show up in your life? And when I said, how might you react? And she wasn't 100% sure. So I said, you know, well, what if your husband, every time he saw you reading a book, you know, by Tony Robbins or Jack Canfield or something, and he'd just say, put that down. I don't know what you're doing there, Eileen. You know, this is so stupid. How are you going to react to it? Do you move to the other room? Whatever. So if they don't support, you know, and that's the other thing, is that especially relationships, if people don't support your values, that's when those triggers come up. So that's when those kind of backup behaviors happen, and you say, you know, you get upset with people. So everybody have that done, at least for 1 value? So Eileen, go ahead and do a breakout. What we're going to do is we're going to put you in a breakout room randomly. We're not sure if you're going to get the same person or more than once or not, but you're going to have just 3 minutes to share with your partner one of your values and answer those 3 questions. Does that make sense to everybody? So you can just start right off and say, this is one of my values, boom, 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 boom. Or you can do it like an interview and say, hey, Sonny, so what's your number 1 value? They'll answer and then say, okay, so where does it show up? So you can do it either way you want. 3 minutes, just watch yourself. You'll be automatically, you'll see a timer on the side, and then it'll tell you, you can come back into the group, and you'll have like a minute to return to the group, or it'll just kick you out after that 1 minute. Okay? And then we're gonna, that's it. Okay, so let's play. Supporting you, or are they people that are bringing you down? Are they constantly, basically that it. I mean, that's a wonderful thing about the Women's Chamber, is that this is a wonderful, wonderful tribe. We all support each other. I want to thank you guys for inviting me today, because I really think when you're working with amazing people, amazing things happen, and that's where the magic happens. So again, PIPE routine, PIPE, what's my purpose, what's my intention, and my present, and how's my energy? So my goal is for people to love the life they live. So again, there's the power of values. So go out and create the life that you want. Do I have anything else? This is how you contact me. But any questions? I should ask that first. Any questions?
Miss you, Meg.
Miss you, Vanita. I'm in Molesso. Come on down to the beach. We can social distance on the beach. Anybody? Okay.
Will you offer a longer seminar another time?
Yes.
GWCC? Okay.
Yeah, I'll do something, whether it's through GWCC, I'll definitely, do something, whether it's on my own or GWCC. I do have, like I said, right now I have a workshop series called Creating a Team of Leaders. And I start with defining success, and then I get into showing up for success, and then it's success in action. And then I get into coaching for performance, and the other one is leading from within. So I have, 5 different 2-day workshops, and it kind of goes through a lot of this, but it starts with values. It really starts about values. What do you want? What's important to you? And then how do we, put those together? How do we prioritize the things we want to, who do we want to be, do, and have? And then from there we can get into, the skills that we have to develop to make it all happen. I don't know how to turn off my phone. So yeah, so look for that. I'll put something like that together.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Meg. So yeah, I also want to say,
Thank you, Meg.
I want to hand it over to Kathleen before we get off to the committee chair for this professional development committee that put this on alongside with our sponsor, Addis Trust and Investment. But yeah, thanks, Meg, so much. And I put in the chat box, I don't know if you guys saw, I said, do you guys know that Meg was a former board member at GWCC? So that's fun trivia. She's definitely served on the board. She's done so much to advance the Guam Women's Chamber of Commerce. So she's a close friend of mine as well. So I just want to thank you so much, Meg, for coming on and just to give us value, but also to, help us identify our values. Do they need to be reassessed at this point in time with everything going on, right? This is really important, I think, to sit back and take this minute to say, how can we be better, right? How can we be better in everything we do right now? And I think this was just a perfect platform.
Yeah, I really believe that you should do this annually, every 2 to 3 years. I prefer to do it annually because things can shift really quick. And as you grow, when you're into doing personal growth, even professional growth, all of a sudden, I've hit this level, I need to change. If you're working off the same values you're working off 10 years ago, then you're kind of in the past. And really, when you think about your values, you want to think about, what do you want to be? So I'm going to, just because I have the time, I'm going to share this really quick. I did an assessment, and I had 39 assessors, and I had my own values, and then they said the values that they observed within me, or when they're working with me, and then they said requested values. And one of the things that came up in my assessment was, you know, strategic thinker, goals oriented, organized, attention to detail, current learn. And I was just kind of like, oh my gosh, it's like, because that's what made me successful in the first place. So is it people aren't seeing that from me? Am I just doing things differently? So I really had to assess where I'm coming from, and maybe it's either I'm not showing it enough, or it could be somebody else. But the thing is that, so you can also do like a 360. You can do a total organization. You can do a team. It's really a really kind of a cool tool. But I just think values are really one way to work it.
Yeah, and I love that. Yeah, having other people also look at you and showing you like these are the things that we see. But yeah, so and Meg is definitely one of our industry advisors for you members out there, GWCC members. If you want one-on-one time with Meg, that is part of your benefit is having industry advisor time up to 3 hours that is funded by the GWCC. So please do reach out to us so we can connect you if this is something you want to delve a lot deeper into and have a little bit more time and space. She's definitely available for that, so we can connect you. All right, so once again, yeah, I'm gonna hand it over to Kathleen. Thank you again, Meg, and you can see her contact information right here.
Okay,
well, thank you, Meg, so much for all your great energy. And I don't want to keep us any longer, but even though we'd love to stay and chat, I found the breakout room to be a lot of fun. Got to meet a couple of really cool new people. So thank you again, Meg, and everyone for your time.
Thank you. It was great.
Take care.
thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Trying to get out of here. All right.